Today we're going to be looking at a tool within the Baumer Verisens software. It's called part location on edges, as opposed to the original part location on contours tool, which I've already made a video on. So it's pretty similar to that tool, except there's some big differences, and I'll show you those here in a second. If you click on check features, you click add. This is how you add any of the different tools within the software. Under part location tab, the second one down is called part location on edges. You double click that, and that's going to let you draw a couple arrows, a couple lines. And the way this works is anywhere along those lines it's going to try to pick up the first edge. So in this case, it's hard to see here, but there's a little green line here. So it picked up that edge here, and up here it picked up this edge. And it'll locate the part based off of those edges. So as the part moves around, you can see this orange right angle is the original placement of the part, and now it's moved over to the right a bit, moved over to the right a bit, a little bit more to the left, more to the left. So it's picking up the part as it moves around. So that's one of the different ways you can use this tool. The second one is shift and rotation 3 edges as opposed to 2 edges. It's pretty much the same thing, except you got 2 different lines that are always tied in and parallel to each other. The reason you use this is maybe you have an application where you need 2 lines to reduce noise and to make sure you're picking up the right edge. So you can use 2 different ones there. The third one is probably the one I use most, which is called horizontal shift only, which would be great for this application where your bottle's moving around in the X direction but not in the Y direction. So sometimes these bottles, or any product really, is coming down a conveyor belt really quickly, and it might be slipping on the conveyor belt a bit. So that's why they're moving around in the X direction. And it's important that they're not moving around in the Y direction to use this tool, this horizontal shift only. Then you'd have to use these 2 edges like we were doing before. And it'll locate your part in the X direction anywhere it is, and then you can subsequently fix your other tools off of this tool. So you can make a brightness tool over here, make sure you got a cap there, or a bunch of other different tools. And they'll move around with the part because this tool is picking up the part in the X direction. Similarly, you have a vertical shift only, and that's if your part's moving around in the Y direction only and not in the X direction. So let's go back to the horizontal shift because that makes sense for this application. So we'll teach that in. And then the different settings you got here, these are very similar to some of the measurement tools as well as the angle tool. This basically just shows different settings for the characteristic of the edge. So the minimum edge length can be short, it can be normal, it can be long, and that just means that the edge has to be a certain length for it to pick it up as an edge. So if it was short, you can move this edge way up here and it'll still pick it up, whereas if it was long, it's not going to pick it up because it doesn't extend far enough out this way. It's just different ways to make sure you're picking up the right edge and not some noise or some speck out here. Again, transition, you can go bright to dark, dark to bright, or both directions. So in this case we're going bright to dark. You can click that, and then you can have the minimum contrast. So right now it's set at low contrast, but this is always going to be pretty high contrast, so you can change that as well. And that's really all the settings there are. You can click OK, and then subsequent tools, like I said, that you add here. For example, if you had a barcode that moved around with the product, you can fixture them or tie them in to this first tool so they'll move around with the product as well.